Mom and dad won't eat? Are there different things that you find dealing um, with different clients and different people that you take care of that have been helpful?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges as we age. We've talked about the physical aspect of things. We've talked about isolation. Eating's another aspect that is often looked at and with concern because those eating habits do dramatically change as we age. A number one factor is that our taste buds completely change as we get older. So the foods that we enjoyed at younger ages we may not enjoy the same way, and that's a large part, a natural part of aging because of those taste bud changes, and they can change in ways in which we suddenly start liking something that we didn't like before also that people don't realize as much. So for us it's a matter of really not giving up on trying. Too often getting back in that stuck in their ways, we think someone's stuck in their ways and they don't want to change any of those things, but we can make introductions to new foods. We can make introductions to changing the way foods are prepared. Um, we can use different types of flavorings that don't necessarily mean adding salt to things. We of course want to avoid oftentimes adding salt, but there are other things we can do to enhance the flavor of foods. But all of those things won't work. What you and I might think of as something that, with maybe a lot of garlic and our taste buds are fully active. With a senior, a lot of garlic may not have any impact at all on the taste that they're experiencing. So it's really a lot of trial and effort not to give up on that. There could be something physically going on. You want to obviously have a, if there's something you notice very specific, then we want to have some intervention from a physician on that. But if it's the gradual, normal type of food changes that happen with age, again, we can try doing some different things with the way the food is prepared. We of course try and look at diet as something very important. Again, I'm going to circle back to my own personal experience here. My uncle, my family was involved with care for my uncle, and when I when I came to visit and I asked like some of the foods and things they were preparing, I recognized right away that they were kind of sticking to a diet plan that was perfectly fine when he was able body and making normal decisions about his health. Again, his decisions. But as he's experiencing dementia at this stage and has some challenges with deciding what to eat. He, of course, will take most things you put in front of him. But what they were doing was continuing to give him food that was similar to what he would have in the earlier years and things that they would have on their dinner table. And I had to really reiterate that, like, we probably need to try, and even though my uncle didn't like fish necessarily, we were able to reintroduce fish to him in a way that he was able to enjoy. It provided him some good nutrition, something that was lighter for him, so it didn't have, because he simply doesn't have the physical activity he had. They were unfortunately still thinking along the family meal, too many fried foods as we have in America, no matter what. But too much of that, too much butter, too many fats really in the diet, that I was like, hey, we need to think about trying to reduce some of these things. So I went through a plan with them, said here's some different ways that you can prepare meals, different ways you can approach it, and that worked for the most part. He's got times when he wants a specific meal that he knows he likes and asks for, but then we try to just limit that to being more of an occasional item versus an everyday item because it's important. But um, if it's mom or dad won't eat, it's really making sure that there's a reason why they're not eating, and taking that very soft approach with it. I think that too often we start, it's a go-to for so many of us, is to start treating our aging parent more childlike and trying to convince them to do things they don't want to do, the way we might treat a toddler to do something that they don't want to do. I just don't think that's the right approach. I think it's absolutely the wrong approach to take. I think they should be involved in that decision making. But it's, again, it's really tough. I gotta admit that as a family member myself, with my uncle, I was able to do a much better job than with my own mom. My mom, I'm emotionally involved, and I know that her actions are detrimental, even though she's in full control of those actions. And so I get emotionally uh, charged easily. And so that's where I had to rely on my own staff to step in. And even though she wasn't just a pushover with them, she was able to look at it from a different scenario and get those involved. So again, this is where professionals being involved can really help out. And I don't think that, I think what I want to say is I think there's some fantastic companies that are out there doing this type of work. But I think that even the best company doesn't automatically just start doing these things on your behalf. They're not going to recognize these things even on their own. They've got large client lists. They've got a lot that they're dealing with. And even the caregiver that's there locally, she's trying to make sure that she's getting the job done that she needs to, that the person is safe, that they've got the food that they need, and they have all of their needs met. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take the time to go through a food options with them. Again, we like to ask that. So I think that's where it's important that families do arm themselves with as much knowledge as possible, and then ask those companies to take some approaches with this. I think you'll find that all of the companies will be happy to engage when asked by family members, but they might not always do that on their own. It's not the norm, if you will. We do a few things that are a little different than other companies, but even with those things that we do, it's not going to mean that we're going to go into this full-on plan of getting the person up and out, getting the nutrition better. We're really there first and foremost to make sure that they're safe, secure, and that their needs are met, and not necessarily addressing that their dietary needs are exactly what they want. We tend to focus oftentimes more about the prescribed requirements, low salt, low fat. We stick with those things, but we don't necessarily, and caregivers are often ill-armed with the abilities, or actually the freedom to try some of that experimentation. But their supervisors are always happy to engage with family members and the client to modify and change some of those things. So I think that's important to families realize that they just need to be engaged with the process. Just the professionals will do a good job, but they'll do even a better job if you give them some prompting.